Welcome to Authentic Energy, a podcast dedicated to getting to the bottom of what it means to be your true, authentic self at work. I am your host, Wendy Brand, a former corporate executive turned transformation coach. Let's take this learning journey together as I meet with guests weekly to learn how they've managed, or not managed, to find the elusive boundaries and success in their career and what it really means to find balance. Welcome back to Authentic Energy, and welcome to the Seeds series with Wendy and Whitney. Whitney Kinservik will be my guest for the next few weeks as we introduce ideas and concepts to help lay the groundwork or plant the seeds for development and growth. A little bit about Whitney. She is an award-winning business leader and loves creating massive scaled solutions, which is where she was able to make really the greatest impact in her corporate experience. As an example, two notable contributions were, first, creating the largest content moderation workforce in the world for Meta, and prior to that, building the largest full rack integration operation in the world for Dell. Whitney is a wife, mother of two, plus a bonus kid, 3 cats, and a dog. Her current passion is coaching, and recently she started her coaching company, Inner Sage Coaching. Each episode in our Seeds series will bring you a concept that we hope you will find valuable and actionable. This week's concept is centered around values. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome back to the Authentic Energy podcast. Whitney, thank you for joining. Whitney Kinservik is our guest. I'm so excited that we have you on the show today and actually for like the next, I don't know how many episodes with this series. I'm so excited.
Me too. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. Well, Whitney, tell us a little, let's get the audience up to speed on you. Who are you and kind of what's been your latest journey?
Yes, thank you. I'd love to share. I'm an executive coach, mentor, and facilitator for my company, Inner Sage Coaching, which is here in beautiful Austin, Texas. I arrived here through a couple of decades in leadership, innovation, and operations. I began that journey as a U.S. Army intelligence officer, and then I moved to the private sector once I had kids and spent about a decade and a half with Dell Technologies, and then most recently 5 years at Meta as an executive in trust and safety.
Awesome. Exciting. And then we went through our coaching program together through IPAC, which is how we met. And we've just really been having some great conversations about really, all things leadership and development and coaching.
Yeah, I really love the conversations we started in because it's really about, and I think we're calling it seeds, because it's really planting the seeds of awareness. But we also understand our training is rooted in a couple of different sciencey things. So cognitive behavioral therapy and rational emotive behavioral therapy, which is the whole concept of that thought, feeling, action, or consequence. Yeah. And then the second one is really about being able to change that idea. But when we were talking about this, you brought up a really excellent point, which is it's impossible to be able to identify those initial thoughts, whether they serve you or don't serve you, if you don't understand your beliefs. And so where do the thoughts come from and really kind of backing into that? And so it set up a really interesting journey for us, I think, over the next couple episodes of like, what do you believe? How do you identify it? How do you change it? How do you get what you want? Like, how do you move through all of that?
Yeah, I love that. And I think to really think about, okay, what do I believe? A good place to start might be your values.
That's a great place to start. And it's a really tough question. I remember in our own training, when they first said, what are your values? They present you with a list of like, I don't know, there's got to be 100 values on this list. And that's a subsection of what values could be. And so coming up with like, what are the 5 that I'm using at any given time to make any decision, from like, what do I want for lunch? Or, should I buy this house? How do those values even relate to each other, and why are they important to me? It's a pretty big mental exercise to go through.
Yeah. Like I thought, of course I know what my values are, but when you're faced with a list like that, I really took a step back before I could narrow it down to 5,
Yeah, it really does force you to be honest with yourself. And we talked about that a little before the program today, is like, as we reflected on our own values lists that we wrote 6 months ago, we're like, oh man, I'm not sure that these are the same. And I realize now that I like lied to myself, and one of the values I picked isn't one of my values. And so there's also this, how do you get honest with yourself?
Yes.
What really are my values? I would say that values for me started surprisingly early because my parents invested in this book series called The Value Tales. And my dad was my mom wanted my dad to read us bedtime stories. So that was the time that he like had to spend. It was, on retro reflecting on that, it was probably my mom being like, look, I just need 30 minutes to myself.
Yes.
Go read them a story. But the way that he did that was to get this book series called The Value Tales. And I think it was like I don't know if it's Reader's Digest or what it is. But the first one is called The Value of Believing in Yourself. And it's Louis Pasteur and about his journey into getting the rabies vaccine created. And all of the stories have like imaginary friends, and it's interesting. And so I had the good fortune of having exposure to the idea of a lot of different values. The ones that stuck with me, or the one that I think stands out for me, is integrity. It's a deal breaker value for me. So who I spend my time around with, who I work for, the work that they do, it probably had a lot to do with why I joined the military. There's just a high degree of integrity in that choice of profession.
Yeah.
In my first profession, I thought I was going to go into law, and then thought, well, there isn't actually, and my internship was in politics. And so I realized how little integrity there was there, right? It was a lot more about power and moving the power structure and the money and everything else. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. And that's what convinced me to go in the military. So that's how I think integrity is probably the first of my top five values, and where it shows up for me.
Cool. I love the book thing.
I'm not sure it helped me on my own value,
but you probably learned what they were. I mean, you learned what a value was.
For sure. And why they were important, because it's something about your character. And that's probably what I would have remembered about those bedtime stories, or why my dad thought it was important to read those books, is that character was important to him.
Yeah. Integrity too. That's also one of my top five. And when I think of integrity, I just think, if your integrity with yourself, or your integrity, I was like, how would you articulate that? And I was struggling at first. And so I looked up just a definition online, and it said a person with integrity behaves ethically and does the right thing, even behind closed doors. And I thought, yeah, that's it. It's the behind closed doors. I think that's integrity. Like when no one's looking, are you doing the right thing? Okay. So tell me your other four.
My other four. So my second one is humor. This is really important to me. I feel like if people can't laugh, if they can't play, if they can't, then you actually aren't experiencing their authentic self, because there's some vulnerability in laughter.
Yes.
People do it when they're nervous. They do it when they're happy. They do it when they're sad. It's a strange expression of emotion, but if you can experience humor with people, you start to see who they really are. And so humor is important to me. I also enjoy laughing, and I want to be able to kind of wherever I am. And so that is my second one. Creativity is my third one. I really like an elegant solution to things. And I think that probably why I like the cutting edge of business, or a really messy business problem, is I don't just like to have the solution, because anybody can hack something together, but coming out with a solution that truly is creative, innovative, and beautiful is interesting. And I have a lot of hobbies on the backside of my job life that are really rooted in that creativity, and making sure that right side of your brain opens up, and so you can kind of access both your right and left. And then the fourth one is courage. This probably comes through a lot with how I think about leadership, and how I think about maybe bold decisions you make about your own life. And so it comes up in a lot of, which do you choose? And it sort of goes back to that integrity a little bit around like, what do you do when no one's looking?
Yeah.
But also, what do you do when they are? So, if a whole room of people are watching you make a decision as a leader, you have a couple different choices. You can protect the thing you have, or you can boldly go forward. And I think a lot of times I watch leaders make a decision to protect instead of expand, because expanding takes courage and belief in yourself. And there are a lot of things that are kind of layered in there. So courage is important. And when somebody falls short of that, where they could be with courage, it diminishes them in a way that doesn't let them meet their full potential. And so courage is important. And again, that kind of goes back to character. And the last thing I have is commitment. And I waffle between commitment and loyalty. And then I think about that, like, somebody called me at 2:00 in the morning and said, I need help. Would it matter if if it was a loyal person? And it wouldn't, which is why I go to commitment. Like if somebody calls me at 2 a.m, it's like, I need help. I'm like, I'm there.
Yes.
So I just go. And so it's commitment. And also if I say I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there.
I love all 5 of those because I see each of those are all 5 things that I appreciate about you, honestly. Like,
oh, thanks.
For real. I love it so much. So mine are, I mentioned adventure. I said integrity. Holistic living is real big for me. And that is holistic living to me is all of the things like our kind of our wheel of life. Like how are you living wholly with a W in yourself,
Yeah.
And then personal growth. And my mother, growing up, like she was always reading self-help books. And so when I started getting into just reading in my free time, I wasn't picking up fiction. I was picking up, self-help stuff. So adventure, integrity, personal growth, and holistic living. I did the list 6 months ago, and then I did it again today.
Yeah.
And the only difference was today, 6 months ago, I put joy. And then today, when I was just trying to remember what I had, or really just reassessing again, I put self-expression. And I think for me, this goes back to it's kind of a mix of courage. I think it's kind of courage. Like I want to be living in joy, but in order to do that, I think I need to be sure that I'm expressing myself, and that I'm being courageous and being honest with myself and with others about who I am. And I want to leave self-expression on there, I think, until I really nail that down,
So I completely agree with you that as you go through these values that I definitely see you carving out yourself. And you have a podcast, so self-expression, you're, as far as I'm concerned, nailing it. But I can see all of that. I'm really jealous of your holistic living. Can I be jealous of someone else's values? I don't know. I feel jealous because the one I said I lied to myself about was self-care was on my original list and isn't really. It's just who I want to be. And I want to have self-care as one of my foundational things, but it's something I always back burner. So I love that holistic living. See, there's a reason that I hang out with you. It's so that
same.
I know that.
Okay. So we know what our values are. And so what do we need? What do we do with these? Right. I put them on a sticky. I've had them at my computer, but I couldn't find them today. So they were clearly not readily available. What do these mean to us? How are these important for us day to day?
Well, I think maybe for everybody, it's a little different. For me, it matters to me when I'm making big decisions. And I really don't consider them very much when I'm, trying to decide what I have for lunch. Although it could, should I have a salad or should I have a slice of pizza? I don't know how much of that is integrity, humor, commitment. It might be if I'm, trying to be keto and I'm trying to stay, like you said, within integrity of myself.
Yeah.
And so it might have something to do, but I typically consider them more when I'm making bigger decisions. So, do I want to change a job? And if I change that job or transition into something, am I moving into a culture that believes in these things? So do they have integrity? Do they have courage? Do they have humor? Like that is important. And if you walk into an interview series with people and you recognize that they are all kind of running a little scared and they're not super funny, they're super serious, you're like, maybe this isn't my place. So it helps you to see the things that you normally wouldn't see about a decision that you're trying to make.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other place for me is, I think it's a good place to kind of check in from time to time. Like the adventure piece for me, like actually with all of these, with holistic living, with personal growth, with self-expression, like just checking in from time to time and saying, okay, I've been a little cranky lately. I haven't traveled. I haven't done anything. I've just been in the mundane, sitting here in my office, getting shit done, but I haven't done something different and fun and exciting and changed, a change of scenery, change of pace. Well, no wonder I'm getting cranky. I've done nothing adventurous.
What great awareness and what a great application of values, because that is in an everyday life check-in. So not just around big decisions that you're making, but rather, hey, I'm checking in with how I'm feeling right now and how not just my thoughts. So mine was really about thoughts. And if I'm trying to decide something, that's really your thinking. This is how do I feel? So not just thoughts, but feelings relate back to values. And how do I apply that? And if I don't feel quite right, maybe something is out of tolerance for me on those values.
Yes. All right, Whitney. Well, we promised that we would keep it short and simple, but we are going to have homework. So
I love homework. Homework's great.
Yes, I agree. Okay. So what should we have the listeners do this week? How can they get on board with what we're doing?
Yeah. So I love this awareness exercise, and I really like how it relates to not just your thoughts, but also your emotions, and really kind of digging into who you are and what's important to you. And so, maybe going through this values exercise and seeing where everybody ends up. And, it's a pretty, I don't know, it's like 100 values or something. So it's not all of them. And there is an other category, which is actually where I stuck courage because it's not on the list.
I love it. Yes. And in the assessment, it has, you rate the value and then you also rate the action. So here's the value that, 1 to 10 rate the different values, but then there's another column for how are you showing, like, are you living these? Are you walking the talk? And so it's a great exercise. So I'll post the link in the show notes, but it is on my website, wmbcoaching.com/values-assessment, but I'll put it in the show notes.
If I would have done this version of the list, which is the list plus, am I walking the walk? I'd have known 6 months ago that self-care was not on my list.
Okay. Well, this has been so much fun. Excited to get back on and talk next week. We can do a follow-up on the exercise, maybe check in on how our values showed up this last week, and then dig into the next topic. Thanks, Whitney. I hope you enjoyed our values episode. Here are my takeaways. Number 1, integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is looking. Number 2, if someone can't play or laugh, you probably aren't experiencing their whole authentic self. Number 3, creativity can help you find an elegant solution to a problem. Number 4, courage can show up in leadership, bold decisions you make in your own life, and what you do when people are looking. When someone falls short on their courage, they are not living to their full potential. Number 5, holistic living is fully living in each part of your life. Number 6, personal growth is about always investing in yourself and continuing to develop and grow. Number 7, self-expression requires courage, being honest with yourself and others. Number 8, surround yourself with people who share your same values, but also those that you admire. Number 9, values can be used as a gauge in making big decisions, and they can also be important in checking in with yourself to make sure you are living your values. Number 10, visit wmbcoaching.com/values assessment for your homework and fill out your own values assessment. Rate them on the worksheet and then rate how you are living those values. That's it. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed our values episode. Stay tuned next week with more of our Seed series with Wendy and Whitney.